on what it takes to actually get in shape. Like the brutal, honest truth on what it's going to look like for you to not just like lose a few vanity pounds, but to like actually become like a fit person. Be honest, like nobody wants to get fit slow. Nobody wants to get rich slow, and nobody wants to get fit slow.
Yeah.
But what do the people who have accomplished both of those things have in common?
Yeah, they did it slow.
Welcome to episode 59 of In the Grand Scheme of Fitness with your hosts, Justin Schollard and
Ethan Wolf.
So today, guys, we're talking about like the real on what it takes to actually get in shape. Like the brutal, honest truth on what it's going to look like for you to not just like lose a few vanity pounds, but to like actually become like a fit person, like a truly fit athletic person. Like what is that going to take? What's the time horizon? What's the time commitment from like a weekly standpoint? Nutrition, fitness. We're gonna do our best to just sort of lay out your runway to go from, you know, if we are 0% fitness right now, maybe you're at a decent level of fitness, to all the way to like what you would imagine yourself as like your full potential, right?
Absolutely. I think managing expectations is really important because I think people that haven't either like done the journey yet or don't know much about it have certain expectations, and I think sticking with it, making it a lifestyle, being consistent over long periods of time kind of are a dance with expectations, because I think when expectations aren't met, we get discouraged. It's that much easier to quit. And I think that because either people just don't know, uneducated in that capacity, or just have false expectations because they think they know what the path is, that when they actually start to walk it, things are different, and then it all just kind of gets skewed.
Yeah, I mean, managing expectations, because let's be honest, like nobody wants to get fit slow. Nobody wants to get rich slow, and nobody wants to get fit slow.
Yeah.
But what do the people who have accomplished both of those things have in common?
Yeah. They did it slow.
So they did it slow.
Or they did it with how it goes, which is,
Yeah, like it's messy and it sucks, and you go through periods where you feel like nothing's happening and you're just wasting your time, and then, you know, you start to see little flickers of hope, and then like over years, you know, it slowly starts to reveal itself that you've actually accomplished your goal, and that just takes time. And so
especially with physiology, I think.
Yeah.
Like even with money, you might be able to make a big investment and take a risk, and
that's an outlier though. Most folks,
but physiology, there's no way around the truth of what you're working with. You know?
And to that point, it's like what you're working with is your genetic disposition. Like if you're tall, if you're skinny, if you're, you know, built like a beanpole, if you're built like a fire hydrant, you know, like
you're efficient at using calories and therefore gain weight easier.
Yeah.
Or you're inefficient at using calories.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. So there's all these factors that kind of play into your particular unique genetic potential, which is all we can do. Unless we want to do drugs and steroids and get surgery and stuff, which obviously happens. But for the rest of us who, you know, would rather just do it the good old fashioned way, then, you know, we have to be realistic and manage expectations about like what's possible for us. But who cares? Because it's, you know, it's like we're just competing against ourselves, basically. Like, you know, and as long as we can just accept that and be process oriented, you know, it's amazing what can happen. Okay, so the real, how, like, what does it take? Let's just take like a case. Let's take like a scenario here of like someone who, let's say they're like super casual with their exercise. They're probably carrying an extra 20 to 30 pounds of extra body fat, probably not very strong. Maybe they get some walks in, maybe they do a workout, you know, very sporadically, but not consistent. So they're not strangers to it. They're not starting from zero, but maybe they're just like, there's no traction, there's no consistency. Maybe they're in their 30s, they work, their nutrition's kind of all over the place. They're trying, but they're not really trying. They want it, but they're not really showing through action how bad they want it, you know?
Yep.
So that, you know, that's a kind of a typical person, I think. That's like a typical, like, you know, Westerner.
I can relate.
Yeah. So here's one right here. So what would that look like then? Okay, what's the real? I'm that person, and I want to go for it. Like I want to see what this body's capable of.
Yeah, I want to go there.
What does that look like?
What does my body look like? How can it perform?
Yeah.
All the things. Mm-hmm. Well, I think, you know, and especially keeping it real, especially for aesthetic goals, it's, you know, that's most people's motivation a lot of the time when they want to get into shape. And I think that when people look good, they feel good about themselves and they kind of can check the box. Few of us are actually going for performance-based goals, although there are definitely plenty of people, I think, that want to just beast out, enjoy the training if they get into it after some time and kind of want to see what they can do with it. But I think fundamentally, it's like anytime you're carrying around extra weight, that's going to be first priority.
Yeah.
You just have to kind of
lean out first.
Lean out first.
Yeah.
Whether you get like shredded or you just get to like a very nice healthy composition. If you're carrying extra, it's just not going to serve you whether you're choosing to run or do exercise or look good.
Yeah. Because even if you put on muscle underneath 30 pounds of extra body fat, you're just going to kind of look bigger. You're not going to. It's not going to be what you want.
Yeah, 100%.
Men and women. So I think rough number like. For men, get yourself in the mid-teens of body fat percentage. Women, get yourself in the mid to low 20s body fat. So men could be like mid, so like let's say 13 to 16% is a good.
Would be pretty solid, yeah.
Pretty solid to start like, okay, we're going to like performance train now.
Yeah.
And then I think for women, maybe like somewhere between like 25 to 20, somewhere in that pocket.
Yeah, I mean,
is solid.
20 for
20
females.
20 is pretty lean, but 20, 25.
I'd say 25 is good.
But
Below 30.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's everybody kind of looks different at different body fat percentages, so you just got to decide what's the right number for you. But I think that just like a general rule of thumb, if you are that person we just described, you are kind of like half in, half out, not really taking that seriously, but you're not necessarily brand new at it, but you're not also, you'd be surprised, even in a calorie deficit, even if the focus is fat loss, just by sheer consistency with your training, meaning that like 3 times a week, it's such fertile grounds for someone like that.
Yeah.
That any stimulus, even if it's just resistance bands and calisthenics, just to start to lower the barrier of entry and just to start 3 times a week consistently with hitting high protein targets, and even if you're in a calorie deficit, but like consistently eating meals and high protein, you'll still get a hell of a lot stronger and put on muscle. Now, the more fit you get, the less muscle you're going to build in calorie deficit. So in the beginning, you can take full advantage of that opportunity for your body to like, the pure novelty of the stimulus will produce muscle tissue and strength, even in a calorie deficit. Now, once you're more an advanced fitness person, the amount of muscle you build in a fat loss phase is very negligible. So that's why it's like just getting protein levels up and being consistent with your training. If you're that person who's just getting the ball rolling, you'll see amazing recompositioning happen in that first few months if you're consistent. Yeah.
Well, I think some of the things for me, like to think about expectations is like, what's it actually look like to change your diet? Like, what's the expectation of what that actually looks like? Because it's really easy to be like, oh, like to lose weight, you just got to like get in a calorie deficit and increase your protein. It's like, okay, like what is the actual, and first things first is like, you're probably going to have to pay attention to your food, which is going to be something that's going to be new. I was just talking to a client today, and I'm on the long path with her, but I was just like, let's just have you start tracking as best you can. Even if it's just paying attention to the labels of your food, even if you're not willing to pull out a scale for every single thing.
Yeah.
Let's just like educate you. And she was like, came back to me, was just like, wow, like, yeah, I didn't realize that like 2 giant handfuls of cashews
It's like a whole ass meal.
800 calories, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just bought this little bag of nuts for a snack, and it's just, I mean, it was like a 4x6 inch bag of nuts, and it was 1,000 calories in there. And so I think it's like things like that where you actually start to have to realize, like the expectations is like this is going to be a lifestyle change, and you're going to have to start to participate with food day in and day out in a different capacity. One of those things is understanding what the food calorically and the values actually are. So it's like, it's just kind of, I think, understanding that in order to lose weight, you're going to probably have to participate with food in a completely different way.
Got to start checking those labels, man. Like, it's just, like we said, this is the real. And like, we can stay in fantasy land and pretend like we're all like have this amazing intuition and can just like intuitively eat. But the fact is that if you are that type where we are like having this conversation because whatever we're trying just isn't working and not where you want to be, then you have to question like the quality of your intuition. Because without the proper analysis, meaning we go through 12 weeks of checking every food label and tracking our calories and seeing and getting that pattern recognition, what we're doing is we're building the proper analysis. And that proper analysis is the foundation for you to start trusting your intuition in the future, where maybe you can look at a plate and be like, I think I'm a little over today, or I think I can make that work.
That's a little too many nuts for this serving, right?
Like 2 handfuls, that's way too much. But if you don't have the right analysis because you haven't actually weighted and logged it and seen that that's half of your day's worth of calories for some women,
which is exactly the situation,
then your intuition's wrong because you don't have the analysis.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if the real is you have to go through at least 12 weeks, I think, of track everything ruthlessly, commit to accuracy, don't bullshit yourself, weigh your oil out, count your almonds, because it's like, it matters. 50 calories here, 50 calories there, 50 calories there. Next thing you know, you're 300 calories over for the day that you thought you were. And guess what? That was your deficit. And now you've hit you're over. You know?
I mean, this is a middle-aged woman who's not she's pretty tiny. I mean, in terms of height and stature, and she's like, oh, I'm eating like 2,300 calories, 2,400 calories, 2,200 calories. It's easy to do. And like that, like 2,400 calories would be a strong deficit for me as a 200-pound, 6-foot male. It would be a lot of deficit, but it's not a deficit that wouldn't be egregious. So it's like she's eating in a range that would be appropriate for me as someone almost twice her size.
Who trains, has been training for 20 years.
Yeah, and so it's like you could see the light bulb starting to go off in her head from the tracking. And so I think that's like one expectation is that your relationship to food is going to have to change. You're going to have to pay attention to it. You can't just wing it with the food.
No.
You can't just shoot from the hip.
We will always unintentionally underestimate food.
Yeah, you have to get nitty gritty.
It's just primal.
Yep.
Right.
And it's something that I think also is like how consistent you have to be with the food day in, day out. Now, I'm not saying that every meal for every week has to be tracked and logged perfectly, or that every food has to be a single ingredient food. But realistically, the consistency has to be like every day in some capacity. There has to be this long-term consistency. If it's a 3 or 4 day on, 2 or 3 day off, week after week,
you're
gonna be stagnant.
That's another arc. That's like another case study. Is like, I'm really good Monday through Thursday.
Yeah.
But then I like to let loose, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I like to let my hair down. It's like, that's balance, man. It's like, well, you're nowhere near where you want to be.
Yep.
So is that theory actually true, or is this just a belief system that you've created that is no longer serving you? Because the reality is like, we can do some real damage over the weekend. I mean, you can go from 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, 2,000, and like 4,000, 4,000, 4,000. It's now your daily average is 3,000.
Yep, way over.
And that ain't a calorie deficit for most of us, And so it's just you have to be accurate. You can have a couple of drinks, you can grab dessert. You just got to plan for it ahead of time, and that might mean practicing just a little restraint earlier in the day by, instead of a cup of rice, it's a half. Instead of 3 ounces of whatever, it's only 1.5 ounces. And so what you're doing is you're purposefully restraining calories in the first half of the day, because you have a bigger dinner out later on, and so you're just creating room for it in your calorie budget. And that's how you master the game as far as like the lifestyle balance that we all seek, while still keeping our body composition where we want it.
Absolutely. I was going to say, and I think just also being realistic of like how long it will take to probably lose the amount of fat that you would want to lose to look a certain way or to be healthy.
Yeah.
Both one and the same, two sides of the same coin. But, they talk about 1 to 2 pounds as an aggressive to like a high end. 2 pounds especially.
A week?
Yeah, a week would be like...
2 pounds a week is real aggressive.
It's really aggressive.
We're talking like actual fat loss, like that's aggressive.
It's extremely aggressive. So being, pulling that back from like the one extreme to just understanding that maybe a 0.5 pound a week is a nice, good, steady, healthy, consistent, but successful rate of fat loss for an individual. And then depending on where you're at and how much weight you think you need to lose, start to like put that math together of understanding that you have to be that consistent. Again, setting these expectations of you have to be that consistent with your food after developing an understanding of food through tracking for however many weeks and months in order to lose that weight and get to where you want to be.
To put it in perspective, to lose 2 pounds of body fat per week means you need to be in 1,000 calorie deficit per day. Which for most people isn't going to happen. That's realistically that's crazy.
That's only if you're like a 250
like if you're a huge person,
right?
That we could probably make that work because you're just burning more calories.
Yeah, but like a female will never happen. And I think it's like some people, because you get on MyFitnessPal and they're like, how many? And again, I know that 2 pounds a week isn't necessarily 2 pounds of fat, but people see these options of like, oh, like how many pounds a week do you want to lose? Like half, 1, 2, and people are always like, of course 2. I want 3. It fast. I want it off. Yeah.
But it's like, a pound a week is going to net out, give or take, about 500 calories of a deficit per day. So we always shoot for a pound a week. We like that. That seems to work really well for our clients because for 80% of us, it's doable. So if you're, middle-aged woman who doesn't train very hard and maybe doesn't have a ton of muscle mass on them, then their metabolism is probably still around 1,700. So we could bring them into 12 or 1,300 calories a day, which is very low, but it is what it is. We might only bring them down to like 1,400, just so they're not,
just so they're successful,
ultra low, and they can stay with it. Because consistency is another factor in this. And if you cut too deep, if you want to lose that 2 pounds a week, and you pull 1,000 calories off of your daily intake from maintenance, that's just not realistic. I mean, even for me, my maintenance is almost exactly 3,000 calories.
Yeah.
I was just at 3,000 calories for 2 months, and I was 189 to 201 every single day, depending on food choice. But I was right at 200. Didn't gain or lose anything for 2 months. So for me, that'd be a 2,000 calorie diet every day to lose 2 pounds of fat a week. That would be miserable for me. That would be very comparable to Tanya eating basically 1,000 calories a day.
Say like 1,000.
Brutal. You know, that'd be really difficult. And so sustainability is super important. And that's why we like 1/2 to 1 pound per week, depending on the person, because it just means that you're not going to be starving to death. and then in your head, and then just panic and sabotage.
Well, and break the whole cycle and ruin all of your success. So even, if it's a pound a week and you have 20 pounds to lose, that's 4 or 5 months, 6 months realistically. That's a half a year minimum. That's if you're on your game week in, week out. So I think just having some expectations that if you have fat loss and you like to have 3 beers or 2 beers every night, like what kind of changes are really going to happen. And just getting the binoculars out and looking into the future of what that road's really going to look like, so that you can set yourself up for success, so that as you start to traverse it, you don't just like fumble your way through, and then when things don't happen like you expect them to, you get frustrated and stop being consistent, which is just going to
I mean, and it's crazy people's perceptions too, because I just had a call with a guy. We do these group calls each week, and he's on there, and his name is Jonah, and I was like, hey man, so like, how's everything going? He's like, yeah, I mean, it's all right, nothing's really happening. I'm like, oh really? Damn, dude. I was like, do you mind if I look at your profile? He's like, yeah, sure. So his profile, the dude's lost 27 pounds in 8.5 weeks.
Wow.
I was like, Jonah, he lost 27 pounds in 8.5 weeks.
Which is crazy.
What more could you possibly want, man? He's like, oh, that's good. I was like, yeah. He's like, but I don't feel like I look that different. I'm like, because you have a lot of body fat and very little muscle mass. It's going to take a minute, dude.
Yeah.
It's going to take a minute,
Again, here we go.
But dude, you're on your way. Yeah. And so it's just like, understand what good is, because there is objectively what is good.
Yeah.
If you are losing a pound a week, this dude's tripling that. But if you're losing a pound a week, that is good. Be okay with that. Don't try to rush it. It's like, and the reason we said, in the beginning, I was like, oh, no one wants to get rich slow or fit slow. But the reality is what happens if, okay, I heard, I did math on a calculator, and if I save $5,000 a month, I'll be a millionaire in 10 years. Okay, well, how much do you make, dude?
Yeah, what's it take to save 5,000?
I only make 6,000 a month. I was like, okay, so how long can you realistically put that kind of money away before you have to pull your credit card out, get in debt, it blows up in your face, and you quit?
Yeah.
Same thing with calories, man. Yeah, if you ate 1,000 calorie deficit, you lose 2 pounds a week, but you only burn 1,800.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you gonna do? You're gonna just starve yourself 800 calories until it blows up in your face and you have to quit? It's like, you gotta be smart and strategic and understand that you got a long life ahead of you. And a news flash, the 6 months is gonna happen anyways.
Yeah, of course.
So you can start out too hot, quit for 3 months, feel sorry for yourself, and then pick it back up, and then the 6 months goes by and you're right back to where you started, because you went in too hot, bit off when you could chew, quit, and then you picked it back up again, and now you're right at 0 in 6 months. Or we're the fucking tortoise, and we put one foot over the other, we go into 500 calorie deficit, we rinse and repeat, we commit to the boring work, we stay process oriented, the 6 months goes by, and you have just burned off 20 to 30 pounds of body fat. Yep. You feel and look amazing in the process.
Totally. Which
one do you want to be?
Right.
Well,
and so that's kind of like the food portion of thing. And I think moving on to the exercise, it's especially, to that person's comment of I don't look very different. And I think, the way I would look at exercise again is it's not there to assist with your body fat, but the way you look when you do lose your body fat is going to be highly determined by your training. Mm-hmm. The more you train, the more you do weight training or resistance training, and the more time you take for it, the better you're going to end up looking once you do lose the weight. You're always going to look better once you've lost some body fat. But male or female,
the composition of your body.
Yeah, you're going to look better and you're going to feel better.
And it's like the way you're saying, it's like if you are newer or you've taken some time off or you've just not really been that serious, you have a really magical window of time, the first, 4 to 6 months, where you can be in a diet or in a deficit, but just be consistent with your training and your nutrition and actually build a little bit of muscle, because it's like such fertile grounds. There's so much adaptation potential that now, like we were saying, like once you become more advanced, like after 6 months of weight training, you're probably not going to build a ton of muscle in a calorie deficit. But in that first little window, like what Ethan was saying, like the way you train and the way you go about it, when you do lose that 20 to 30 pounds, you could look vastly different depending on how your training went in that process.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you're taking the time to train or to lose the weight, you might as well start the training. And it's also one of those things that I think, like, cardiovascular health comes pretty quick. Like in 3 months, if you were to just start running or doing sprints or doing some type of aerobic exercise, you could build a pretty decent base of cardiovascular fitness or health. But, to actually develop some good lean mass, it takes time.
Yeah.
You'll have a little spurt. It'll definitely make you look different. If you've never trained or you've never had muscles before in your life, you might notice and be like, oh shit, I got a little something going on. But realistically, I think when people think of a very built physique, whether it's a male or female, I'm not talking about big, bulky females, but just like a body where you can tell that they do something towards that goal, it's going to take time. Strength training is kind of like, I was talking to a client about it. It's like, to me, I look at it as like a shellac layer. It's like you got to ring the bell, you put down a layer of shellac, you let it dry, and you put down another one.
Yeah.
You put down another one. And it takes more time, I think, than people realize in order to develop their body to what I think they want to look like, or what they expect.
Like they think they're going to get there in 12 weeks.
Their expectations of what they think they can look like and then how long it takes. Exactly. 12 weeks, like 3 months, they think they're going to fucking get in there and do some curls. And then all of a sudden, they're just going to have these guns
huge
sticking out,
guns, veins everywhere.
Yeah, and it's just like, no, this probably is a multi-year journey.
Yeah, especially like if you're in your 30s or 40s. Like, listen, I got a guy, Brian, who he's 53. He's in the best shape of his life. He's always going to just look kind of have like a little bit of a dad bod, because he doesn't take it that seriously.
Yeah.
But he's consistent.
Yeah.
And he's not tracking macros, but he's doing a protein shake every day. He's lifting weights 3 times a week. And it's been, a few good years of that consistency. And he's finally like takes his shirt off at a beach and his buddies are like, hey man,
Yeah.
you look good.
You look good, exactly.
Hey, you look pretty good. He's like, well, I guess I kind of do. He's not like shredded Brad Pitt in Fight Club, but he's like,
No, but that took years of consistency,
years.
like for what, 2-3 years, right?
Exactly. So before when he finally got consistent with it,
He got consistent. And again, it's like, and even then, it's not like he's cutting down doors with his triceps, but it's just like, but there's enough there where you look at him and you say, oh, you do something.
Yeah, he trains. He
train.
looks fit.
You look fit. Yeah, exactly. You look fit.
And so, it's like, yeah, like, so to, to put the proper timeline in place here. So depending on where you are with your body fat percentage, plan on 12 to 26 weeks. So 3 to 6 months of just like dedicated fat loss phase. You're still training, you're still weight training, you're still hitting protein
really
numbers.
That's not really going to be any different.
The goal is to maintain muscle mass. Maybe you build a pound or two. It's not about epic recompositioning right now.
No.
It's just getting that fat off of you.
Yes, you gotta get it down.
And then it's going to be another, probably year and a half of like progressive overload. And, for every like
beasting, dude.
You got to do progressive overload every 12 weeks, maybe like a 4-week little mini cut. Every 12 to 16 weeks, you like a little 4-week deficit where you just trim some fat off and then go right back into progressive training again for probably a good year and a half.
Yeah, realistically, I mean, to keep it real, it's going to take probably a year to 2 years, of consistent weight training to get a physique and or to get you into a level of fitness that is going to be consistent. I mean, and we were just talking about it pre-show, but CrossFit, when it was super popular, had all these apps that would track people's progress. They would put in their reps and do this kind of thing.
Yeah, like all the major lifts, your squats, your bench press, your pull-ups and stuff.
If you could 40, your quarter mile, your 1 mile, your 5K or 3 mile run.
Their their foundational. No, what are the workouts called? The WODs, like they name the WODs.
There's like the female WODs.
Your
there's like
Fran, your Nancy.
Fran,
So like all these like standard objective standards.
Yep.
That you do every year. You train hard, you eat, blah, 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 blah. And then every year you kind of cycle through all these benchmarks.
The benchmarks, like what's your squat now? What's
you
your
can see
deadlift?
then a nice graph of like your progress and like how you get a number of just like how quantifiably fit you are. You're 60. How does from 1 to 100, you're 60.
You're 60, yeah. And the grands compared to everybody else, and
now you're 70.
Groups, yeah.
And so I think what Ethan's going to say is we got to see, because we had hundreds and hundreds of members entering every workout.
Well, this is I'm talking about the actual company put this information out. We're talking not just in our members. We're talking about like
the 10,000 users.
Hundreds of thousands. I mean, over globally,
right.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of individuals, and that basically the information showed that from a general low to no fitness individual to get to like some pretty beast mode shit, it takes about 2 years of consistent training, and CrossFit's very hard.
At least 3 times a week.
At least 3 times a week. So I think it's just like to set that again back to those expectations is to like really put it in perspective of that like training takes time to ask your tissues to like transform and adapt from external stimulus. Your body doesn't want to do it. It's kind of like a lot of work, and it's like I'll do it if I have to. You're
kind of going against evolution in a lot of ways.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
burning fat and building more resource intensive muscles, like it doesn't make sense evolutionarily, but like
want to do it.
So we have to like drill it so hard that we're basically reformatting our DNA. Like this is actually what's happening now.
It can't, and you can't let off the gas. That's the thing. It's like, and it goes back to anything. Like consistency is the number one most important thing.
Yep.
Like you said, at least 3 times a week. I mean, and no doubt you could get benefit from 2 times a week if you do some hard resistance training. I'm not going to say there's going to be no change in your body, but realistically, 3 times a week as a good minimum if you really want to go there, and it takes time to ask your tissues to adapt before like your client Brian, before you got some guns and you're just like
like if you just want to be healthy, 1 or 2 good workouts a week and that will make you twice as healthy as but it's an asymptote line, right? So essentially it's like going from no workouts a week to 1 is huge improvement in your quality of life. Going from 1 workout to 2 is still pretty massive. Going from 2 workouts a week to 3 is a really chunky improvement, but less than it was from 1 to 2. And then going from 3 to 4 is marginally better, and that's kind of the sweet spot is 4 in my opinion. And then ever since there's just fractional improvement, 5, 6, 7 workouts per week. It's like you're eking out just marginal improvement. Then you got to kind of weigh that with your body's ability to recover and
your age injuries,
and all these things
and priorities.
So I think like if you just want to be healthy, do 1 or 2. If you want to like change your body, recomp your body, burn 20 pounds of fat and put on 5, 10, 15 pounds of muscle and like look good, 3 to 4 workouts a week, I think is what the doctor ordered here for this.
And time, consistent
and
time.
Quality training, not just like random ass, walking on the treadmill for an hour, but like you're grinding. You're
grinding. I was about to say, like you got to work out hard too. Like, I think the without a training partner or a trainer or a coach, like most people work out at like 40% under their capacity of what they need to be. And so it's like that also is like being uncomfortable 3 days a week. Like you got to get in there and you got to fucking, you got to burn that furnace. You got to grit your teeth and be like, I did it. Thank God.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like you got to get in there.
If you've been doing 3 sets of 10 for 2 years straight, the same exercise, you might want to grab a little heavier weight, or you might want to push, see if you can push a few more reps out. And that is the progression that your body needs, because it's the law of accommodation.
Yeah.
So at first, 3 sets of 10 bench press at 100 pound will destroy your chest.
Yep.
And then you do it every week, and every week is like less and less sore. After 8 weeks of it, you actually start to decline again because your body is accommodated to that movement, and you're no longer really getting a stimulus out of it. So every 6 to 8 weeks, you got to change all your shit up.
Yep.
Change everything. So 6 to 8 weeks, 3 times a week. You got your weight training routine, your push, your pull, your leg exercises, and you hunker down for 6 to 8 weeks, and you progress with those 3, 4, 5 sets of each exercise. Add a little bit of weight each week. Try to squeak out an extra rep or 2 each week. Progress. Doesn't need to be ultra scientific, but just some progression every week.
At least the set feels easier or something.
But then after 6 to 8 weeks, don't go into complacency now. Delete that entire mesocycle and build a new one for yourself, or just or Google a new one and just get a whole new batch of fresh exercises. And then you start again week 1, and every week for 6 to 8 weeks you progress again. If you do that over and over, and you just commit to that monotony and the boring work, I promise you that is how it's done.
Well, it's just never going to be easy. It's something I've, clients, it's like, like you're saying, like you do the bench press, it's 100 pounds. All of a sudden they'll be like, oh, this 100 pounds for 12 reps isn't so hard anymore. And then it's like, okay, great.
They want to stay there because that's their comfort zone.
Now it's time to add another 10, 5, 10, however much weight in order to go back to that place that was deep struggle.
Totally.
And it's like, that's the thing, is like, as you progress, you got to keep matching that line. So that deep struggle is never going to go away. That's the other thing.
You got to
it's
keep,
like
it's constantly are keeping yourself in a state of discomfort.
Yeah. It's this,
as soon as you're comfortable, stop, redo everything.
Yeah. Redo everything.
Yeah. You got to constantly be uncomfortable.
So I think that's like what to think about. And then I think there's also just realistic expectations about when you actually arrive, if you've done both of these things. Even being 2 years in, understanding the truth of what your genetics are, what your age is, what your injuries of the past might be, and just having, I think, realistic expectations. I mean, I was just having this conversation again about genetics, and a linebacker's a linebacker because they were born a linebacker, or a swimmer. And we were talking about this all because, again, the individual kind of was like, oh, well, I thought, like, if a bodybuilder, somebody wanted to be a bodybuilder, they could just be a bodybuilder.
Do isolation curls.
It just takes a lot of work, but like that's what it is. And I'm like, the people that are at the top of the game in bodybuilding, steroids or not, are there because of their genetic potential.
Yeah. Yeah.
That like and no doubt somebody could train for 10 years doing bodybuilding and completely transform themselves.
Yeah.
But they might not be a competitive
They're not
going
to win a show, but you're going to look better.
You're going to look amazing probably.
Yeah.
You might completely be looking like a different person than you were 10 years ago, but you're not going to win a show. And that's just to kind of, I think, pose the example that just like our social media conversation, that if you're comparing yourselves to these Instagram models and these crazy fit mega jack dudes and all these people that we see on social media, which are the filtered out minute percents of individual that get through to your feed and are then presenting themselves in their most optimal states.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably never going to look like that.
Yeah.
Most women aren't going to look like all these crazy models. Most of us men aren't going to look like these super jack dudes.
Yeah, men's fitness covers.
It's just not going to be realistic. Whether you do the 2 years, the 6 months of body fat loss.
I mean, think about
and
it.
The
Like,
3 years of training.
Yeah, we hear genetics and like, what does that mean? Well, okay, let's just look at it from a guy's perspective. It's like, it means you have a frame, let's just say that's somewhere between like, 5'11" and 6'3", which would be like, good athletic height. If you're looking just like aesthetics purely, now we're talking the symmetry, right? So one shoulder's not sunken. You don't have like go-go gadget arms,
you
disproportionate.
Have naturally full chest.
Yeah,
you
like
have a big natural
broad
full chest, broad shoulders,
height to weight ratios. And this is before even exercising. This is just the way you came into this world.
Yeah, just your blueprint.
And then if you're a man, you tend to produce enough testosterone and actually absorb the testosterone your body produces in a way that gets to your muscles with as least amount of sort of roadblocks as possible. Yep. So think about all those things have to happen. And that's before you even touch a weight or get your diet.
Way, yeah.
So when you have that genetics where you're like the right height to weight ratio, the symmetry, and you produce the proper hormones to really just capitalize on muscular development. And then you have to actually have the wherewithal to train in a way, because then you might have all those things, but then all you do is run and you'll never realize your muscular potential because you chose the wrong modality. Then you got to, on top of that, you got to choose the right modality of like strength training or resistance training, and then couple that with proper diet, and then voila, folks, you get a men's health
after 10, 15, 20
years of dedication, and probably TRT, let's be honest.
Yeah, and so I think it's like, most people, I think they will always look better, but I think you'd be surprised at how much like you're going to look. Even if you succeed. And I don't mean that in any insulting way. I mean, I think that goes for all of us, but I think like we can look our best
with a filter. Like it's almost like you will look just like you on your best day.
On your best day.
With like a nice like social media filter that might have gone over and like, you know, smoothed out the
right.
The
but if you're a barrel-chested guy whose chest is as wide as his hips, you're not going to ever have that superhero V'd out lat look with the skinny waist. It's just not going to happen. And no matter how lean you get and how jacked you get, you might look amazing. You might be a force to be reckoned with. You might not be the guy you want to get into a fight with or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're not going to necessarily have the look. And so I think it's just setting expectations that even when we're in our most fit, which most individuals aren't going to get to elite levels of fitness just because they're parents, they have jobs, life is life. And even if you're considered as a dedication, you know, even for me as an individual, it's like I'm not as fit as I could be. I'm definitely quite fit, but even as a lifestyle, it's like, you know, most people are just probably going to not be what they might expect if they were
they reached it.
And I think I say that just again to set expectations so that when you get there, and also like your age, do you have injuries?
Totally.
You know, all of these kind of things to consider, that when the end game actually arrives, that you just, I think for me, it's just understanding you're going to look and feel your best, but to just understand, to stay away from like pipe dreams and to move almost away from, like, goals are good, but to start to think about it as a lifestyle and how you feel. Yeah. And then when you end up there, you're going to look the best that you can look. You're going to feel the best that you can feel.
Totally.
And you get all of the benefits from this being a lifestyle that you interact with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And you move away from this end game look, physique, you know, aspiration, and you just kind of make it process oriented, I think would be the ultimate.
And also like, like it's not easy to maintain peak fitness.
No.
You know, like even the guy on the person that we're talking about on women's health or men's health cover,
yeah, exactly.
Like they've peaked. And so like even bodybuilders, they peak, which means that it's a season. They go through off season when they get heavy and eat a lot of food and put on mass, and then for like 4 to 6 months they just trim until they're single digit body fat, and then step on stage for one day. They peak. Actors in shirtless scenes or sex scenes in movies,
all the actors,
they all do the same thing. They peak for that one day, for that one scene, to take that one shirt off, and then they go back to 15-20% body fat.
Yeah, so all the scenes in the movie where they're shirtless, they
shot
film
it in like 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they're just peak physique now. I've been eating nothing for days. I'm lightheaded. Let's just get all this shit done, and then they go right back to normal. And so like, it's not even realistic to maintain that. Like, I got pretty lean a few years back, and it's like a real trade-off, you know? It's like,
like the quality of life. You're like, where do you strike that balance?
Like, you can't be, like, for guys, you cannot be 10% body fat unless you just have like
crazy genetics.
1% genetics. You cannot walk around at like 9 or 10% body fat and still enjoy dinner out and have drinks with your buddy and like order takeout once. You can't do that.
No,
you can be 15 or 16% body fat, which is fine.
Yeah, you're gonna look good.
But like, that's like the lifestyle trade-off that you have to really be understanding of, and that's totally okay. But yeah, so you know, that's it. That's the timeline, guys. Like, if you got 15 to 30 pounds of extra body fat, lean out first, spend 3 to 6 months leaning out. All the things we just said earlier. And then you're going to then just commit to probably a good 1.5 years of just like 6 to 8 week progressive overload cycles, where every maybe 3 months you do like a 4-week little mini cut to trim off some extra fat, and you just keep, think of it hitching up. You do an 8-week cycle, you hitch up.
And you keep,
exactly. You just
build it.
And you know, in 2 years, you'll take your shirt off at a beach on a vacation, and someone will go, "Hey man, you look good.
What do you do?"
And it'll all be worth it.
It'll all be worth it. Exactly.
And then but then you'll want more, and you realize, like Ethan said, it's just the lifestyle. It's just who you are now. There's no going back.
You can't.
You just gotta just commit to what you can commit to, and just go. All right, guys, that was episode 59 of Coach Quarters. That was a good one. We really got heated there. We were in it.
Yeah,
I love it. Stay tuned for episode 60, and we will check you all later. Peace out. Bye bye.